Hi, guys. I just want to say that Tom and I really have enjoyed doing these podcasts together. I hope that you've actually enjoyed it and, like myself, have actually learned things. This summer, on August 24th, we are going to do an amazing event right here at Under the Stars at Riverside in Oliver, British Columbia. We are going to do a live podcast. We're interviewing a couple of really interesting guests. We'd like to invite you to be there. I believe that you will not only enjoy it, but will be challenged and encouraged by it. So, August 24th, for more information, go to mscproject.com or to underthestars@riverside.ca. Save the date. Look forward to seeing you there.
There is nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has what, Greg?
Has come.
We are again, my friend, to talk about big ideas. And I think I shared this at the beginning of the first episode we did, I think, on this new season.
Yeah.
The truth about the story of humanity is that at the core of many societal turning points are big ideas. Big ideas seem to be the stuff that has made our world the way it is. Right? It's the way we engage with it. I have an interesting big idea to bring to the table today. Marriage.
That's a big idea.
At some point, at some time, again, like many big ideas, you could guess when it happened, but you can't pin it down for sure. The idea of marriage came into our human existence, and we've been doing it ever since. We've fought over it. We've fought each other over it.
Yeah.
And we still do that. So I guess let's bring it to the table here and talk about it. Is everything about marriage, clearly black and white? So it's either this or it's that. What is marriage? Maybe that's a good place to start. Greg, in your understanding, what is marriage?
So let me go back to this narrative idea and the Christian narrative. So for me, I think the best way to describe what is marriage is going back to the first book of the Bible, Genesis. And in the first couple of verses and chapters, first couple of chapters, I should say, there is this idea that we see God creating Eve because man, the male component, knew he was needing something.
Yeah.
And he realized that without a mate, in the case he wasn't what the potential he might have. So we see in the Garden of Eden, God, they go through the story, he's put to sleep, the body part is removed, manufacture a beautiful woman, and we have this woman and a man in the Garden of Eden, and we see the components of a marriage built there. So we have one male, one female, and this is what the Christian narrative holds as a marriage. I'm pretty comfortable with that idea.
Yeah. So the first marriage was, or at least the first wedding was a garden wedding.
Garden wedding, yeah. And I don't think anybody got a documentation or piece of paper afterwards. I'm suspicious that never happened. Most of the weddings today, there is a license required to be married. So in my case, I'm a license holder. So yes, there. I'm just saying is that we've talked about sometimes how we've understood different concepts have evolved over time, and this is another example where now we have oftentimes paper documentation that
Yeah.
goes with it. There's no reference of any paper documentation or stone that was chiseled and said you are married. So
Yeah.
you have this event taking place in the Garden of Eden. So that is a very traditional position that we hold on marriage, and it's one that has been used for a millennium.
Yeah. So there's a see if I can put it this way. There's two different things at play here, as you've pointed out that this thing probably changed over time. There is the right, RIGHT, for marriage, and then there's the custom. Do you have a right to marry if you want to?
I don't think you have a right to marry.
Yeah.
There is no and no right that you have when you're born on this planet. You have certain rights: one to water, one to air, one to food, and one to marriage.
Yeah. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't believe it exists.
But Greg, if I choose not to breathe, I will die. But that's a choice I can make. And if I choose not to get married, then I don't get married.
That's right.
So it's a right. If I want to get married, you can't deny me.
That's right. I can't. In most cultures and in most places on the planet, if you want to get married, you have the capacity to get married. When you use the word right, it implies something pretty solid in saying, you know what, I have the right to park in my parking stall here because my name is on it. That is my right.
Okay.
I have certain rights and authority.
Yeah.
I think when we say I have a right to be married versus I have the privilege of being married, it changes it.
Okay. Fair point. So how about we say the privilege of marriage? Maybe not. The definition of marriage should be able to differentiate between the right, RITE, of marriage and what marriage is, the definition. I think we should be able to differentiate between the two, because there are the things that we do as a custom that is attached to marriage, and there is the thing that marriage is.
Right.
Okay, so the right, RITE, and the definition of this is what marriage is. The two right now seem to be beautifully welded together as if they were always together. But I think the right, RITE again, if that's how you spell it, Mr. Director, spelling is overrated, Greg.
Yeah.
I think the right has changed over time, but the definition remains.
Okay.
Let's look at an example.
Okay.
Let's start with, let's see, Isaac in the Christian narrative, in the biblical Jewish narrative, I guess. Isaac and his spouse was Rebecca. Okay. Now, let's look at that marriage now.
Yeah.
So, Isaac, did he go out and search for his spouse?
No. his dad's hired man went out and looked for him.
So it was an arranged marriage.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So they arranged the marriage. And did she have a choice in it?
I wasn't there, but
Okay, and how the story is told.
yeah, how the story is told, it sounds like, and I think it's probably well understood, but it needs to be said that women in that time frame and most of history have had quite a lot less rights, very few rights compared to men.
Mm-hmm.
And as a daughter of the the dad having a daughter, he had the right, and I'm saying the authority to marry her off to a large degree who he pleased. Now I think that probably the daughter may have some say in it, but at the end of the day, he had veto rights and said, "No, you're going here," etc. on it. So the young lady had a moderate amount at best case scenario to a minimum amount and more realistic influence on who she's going to marry.
Yeah. So on that story, I think it's in Genesis 24. On that story, I think there's a part where the narrator tells us that she was asked if she's willing to go. And she said yes.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the custom there, my argument, Greg, is that the custom there was, number one, the marriage had to be from within family, someone you are related to. Okay? Because this was family.
Yep.
Okay? These two are related. Secondly, she had to be willing. I think in that story, a dowry was also put into place.
Yeah.
And also in that story, the entire thing was arranged by others.
Yes.
Okay. The two who were to be married just had to be willing. It was arranged by others.
Yep. Yep.
That, I think, is custom. It is not the definition of marriage.
I agree.
I think marriage is when the joining, at least in the biblical narrative, it is the joining of male and female.
Yes.
Okay, and we're going to push that definition a bit later on, but it is the joining of male and female, and then everything else that happens around that, all the adult child play, as I like to refer to it, that is part of the custom.
Okay. So how do you define marriage?
Yeah, I think when two people make an agreement to form a unit, a family, they are married.
So could that have terms to it?
Define what you mean by terms.
Well, maybe they want to be married until they have children, or for a period of time.
Oh boy, yeah.
Is that? I'm interested in how you understand that. Until they lose interest in each other.
I mean, an argument can be made, Greg, that all marriages have a term. Because if you die, then it's done.
Yes. Yeah, that's a sad thing when it happens. Yeah.
So
it terminates at that point.
Yeah, it just terminates at that point. So would I be opposed to people saying, you know what, we're getting married, we want to be together until we have 2 kids, and then we're calling it quits at that point because I want to do this, I want to do this. There's a conversation to be had there.
Yes.
There's a conversation to be had there. Because on one hand, to be honest, I would rather have, but I think it would be favorable for people to do that than to start the journey and quit along the way.
Okay.
You know, here's a story. You know me, I grew up around stories, so I love stories. this king comes to his servant and he says, "My servant, I am going on a far, far, far journey. And unfortunately, I will not be coming back. But here is what I want you to do. Take this coat of mine, and the next time you see someone who is any more foolish than you are, give them this coat. They have to wear this coat." So the servant takes the coat and he wears the coat, and then he says, "Oh, but master, before you go on this journey that you're not coming back on, did you know that you were going to go on this journey?" "Oh, yeah, I did. I kind of knew." "Oh, since you knew you're going to make on this journey, did you make all the preparations necessary for this journey?" Not quite. I didn't quite make the preparations." And then, to cut the long story short, the servant says, "Oh, but master, before you go, I would like to give you back this jacket, for I have met a man more foolish than I am." Preparation. I would rather have, I would be happy with people who say, "Hey, okay, we have decided that we're going to get married, and we're going to do this for the next coming 6 years. And after that, I am planning on pursuing this, and this. My partner is planning on pursuing this, and that's what we're doing." And then people who go halfway through the journey, and then it all just self-detonates.
So what you're saying is that if a person has a goal in mind, even though it might be difficult at year 4, they're still going to work it through until year 6, because they know another 24 months,
Yeah,
the jig's up.
exactly. When you know the what's at the end, then I love running. Okay.
Yes.
When I'm going to run in a place where I've not run before, I would rather drive the area first. Okay? Because when I'm running, I want to know that, okay, I am serving this much energy for that hill. And then when I put this much energy on that hill, it's going to be downhill for a bit. I need to catch my breath. I need to allow my muscles to relax as I go downhill. Because I know 3Ks after that, there's going to be a steep climb. So by that time, I would have, the whole thing is in there. But, like I said, I think, to use the running illustration again, the worst person to run a marathon is the person who says, "This looks nice. Let me start and see how far I go." No, those are the people who don't finish. But the person who gets in and says, "You know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to finish this race." There's a goal at the end. And so they run their own race. They don't start chasing everyone, They run their own race. They know, in order to finish this race, I have to move at this pace. So yes, I would rather have people who, my goodness, I can see people on while watching this pulling their hair out already. But if you know, Greg, then it's better. At least I think so. Then it is much, much better. But before we go back to that one, you spoke about Adam and Eve.
Yes.
Okay? Can I argue that marriage was arranged also?
I don't think you have to argue. I think it was.
That was an arranged marriage.
Yeah, that was a pretty easy one. Yeah.
Okay? It's a very arranged one.
Yeah.
And the one thing that Adam and Eve, arguably, and Isaac and Rebecca have in common, besides that their marriages were both arranged, is that the definition that I am offering for marriage holds true for both of them. It is the joining of male and female. When the two come together, you have a marriage.
So I'm not too worried about how we work the terminology around marriage. We can define it in several different ways. What I think I'd like to point our discussion in is marriage should lead to a home. And I'm interested in how do we understand a home.
What is a home?
So let me give you an illustration that works for me. It won't work for our director, it won't work for anybody, but for me it will. One of the businesses I got involved with was in the greenhouse business years ago. Mm-hmm. And we still have some. And a greenhouse, I think, is a pretty good little narrative example of it. It's a home for plants. And when you are looking at a home for plants, you need to understand a couple of things. One is that what is going to happen in there if you do this, if you build a greenhouse properly. It should be a place that protects the plant. It should be a place that actually nurtures the plant, and it should be a place that accelerates growth in that environment. Mm-hmm. It should be a place, if they're interested in growing flowers, it will do better inside a home, inside a greenhouse, than it would do outside a greenhouse. So I am arguing, and my thinking of a marriage / home is that if I can create a home or environment where my spouse, my wife, has the capacity to be insulated, so to speak, from the wind and the rain and the stuff that happens in my little example.
Yep.
So she is insulated from some of the stuff that's going to happen if she was not in my home. We have a place for potentially children to live and to come into being. And in that greenhouse, one is that as the grower, I then take as the dad and as the husband, I see myself as a grower. And as a grower, then I need to understand a couple things. What is it that I'm growing? Am I growing turnips? Am I growing a straw flower? Or am I growing an orchid? So I need to know what my spouse's strong points and weak points are. So I think that's really important. Know what you're buying. If you're going to buy seeds for your little greenhouse, you've got to figure. You should really look at the package and read up on what is it that you're growing. So you need to know what it is that you're putting in your greenhouse. And if you're growing a straw flower, a little bit of heat is important. A little bit of lots of fertilizer. We need the thing well vented. We need a few other factors on. It'll produce an amazing amount of straw flowers. If it's on the other hand, you're doing orchids, you actually want to cut back on that fertilizer. You want to increase the humidities. You need more filtered sunlight. So again, the grower needs to know what he has and what he's working with. And if you do that, you will get an amazing amount of production, much more than outside the greenhouse. So I'm arguing that a home / marriage is a place where you can optimize the potential of your mate and your family. And I think the first role is to, in my case, my wife. Now, I may not do this perfectly. I may not do this extremely well, but I do try and create an environment where she as a person can accelerate and grow. And if I try to suppress her potential, I am crushing her as an individual.
So then it's not a healthy marriage?
Not a healthy marriage. And to a large degree, again, my role is to nurture life. And when I'm growing in the greenhouses, I have one goal as a grower, and that is to maximize the genetic potential of my plants. And so then that means to say, how do I optimize the root structure? How do I optimize the watering, the nutrient? How do I protect it from the bugs, all the viruses, loads that happen? How do I protect it so it doesn't overcrop itself? To maintain a moderate crop at all times? How to keep vegetative growth going and fruit? All these factors come into place. So that's my role as a grower, as a greenhouse operator. There's no less than what it is for a marriage/home.
Yeah.
And if the role of that home is to maximize the human potential of the wife or the wife of the husband, both ways, then you have a home that is flourishing. And when that's flourishing, I would suggest
then you have a marriage.
Then you have a marriage. Then you have a place that the blooms are big and many. That children will flourish in that. And it's a flourishing environment. That's what you want, is a flourishing environment where you do everything you can as a grower to control the heat. If you don't, it'll turn into a hellhole in there. You do all the things you can to moderate everything, to protect it.
I think I like that definition, Greg. So a home, you're saying, is a place where nurturing and growth happens.
Yes, at a ideally at an accelerated level, over and above outside a home.
At an accelerated level, over and above outside. And you are making the idea of home synonymous with the idea of marriage.
I am interchanging that, yes, because I believe that if the essence of a marriage is for growth,
okay,
the essence of a grower is to produce an environment for the growth.
Yeah. So how about couples who decide not to have children?
Well, that's their decision, and
Can growth still happen there? Can the idea of family still happen?
What do you mean by ideal?
No, like the idea of family.
Oh, the idea, yes.
So are they still a family?
Sure. And my illustration, it's about the potential of that spouse. How can I maximize that spouse's potential? And what I'm trying to say is that my spouse knows that I should probably not try to train me to be a singer. Yeah. He can talk, but don't put him try and sing. Just don't do that. It's not a good thing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, my wife is really good on the music and singing. So I need to say, okay, fantastic.
How do I maximize?
How to maximize that? Don't try and spend that, I need to go to music lessons and I need to take voice lessons. Give up. You're not going to, it's not going to happen. You know, there's a couple of interesting sayings that go along with that. But my point is that maximize the obvious.
Yeah.
And there's going to be, when you maximize the obvious, you'll see additional things that will come along with it.
I have a difficult question for you.
No.
And I like it because you're going to give me the eye and you're going to be so unhappy that I asked you this question. And I will enjoy it.
A little too much, I have a feeling.
What about if the couple is a same-sex couple?
Yep. Somehow I had that feeling that you're going to ask that. I would.
Are they still married, Greg? Is it still a marriage?
I'm very comfortable with it. It's still a home.
But not a marriage.
So if you go back and use the criteria from the Genesis experience,
and
you say, in your own words, a male and female, then if that is part of the definition, then by default, anything that doesn't have those components in it is going to be hard to qualify. But can it be a home? Yes.
But it can't be a marriage. But you just use marriage and home as synonymously, remember?
I did, but I'm going back to what you said, though.
So you're backtracking to what I said.
Yeah, I want to, yeah, because if you're comfortable with what
Yeah.
you say, then I should be comfortable with what you say.
The thing is, though, Greg, and I think we had a huge discussion on this on our first season.
Yes.
When we spoke about all other ways of being. As I think it was an episode on gender, Mr. Director, you correct me if I'm wrong, and throw a link on that one for someone who hasn't watched it, so they can just go back and watch that. And in that conversation, Greg, we found out that there has always been other states of being
Yes, I agree.
outside of the male-female view. And we saw I think we read some of the rabbinic literature, and they were discussing this. What do we do? What do we do in this case? What do we do in this case? And in some of the cases they discuss right there, the people are actually married. In fact, there's one rabbi who makes an argument that the very reason why Sarai and Abraham could not have children was that they fell into one of the other states of being that are not male or female. Okay? So, if we're going to go by my argument and then say we're going back to, let's say, maybe the ancient world,
Yes.
then suddenly we find them getting married.
Yeah, and I believe that your point that you're making is a good one. We should be big-minded enough to allow for other variations and other options.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that this was the optimum that we referred to in the Garden of Eden. Time, places, people, etc. have changed. So what I'm coming to is that our definition of marriage to a large degree has to be adjusted. But I'm saying that the idea of a home can still be solid.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I am so in favor of that one.
Oh,
Because
fantastic.
the definition, the standard definition of marriage to date has been the one that is rooted in the Judeo-Christian worldview. Okay? So if marriage is what the Judeo-Christian worldview's tradition says it is, then anything outside of that does not fit.
That's right, except, as you pointed out, there's good suspicion
Yeah.
that the story of Abraham and Sarai, or Sarah,
Yeah.
may have a legitimate case to be made that there was something uniquely different, possibly, or above average,
Yeah.
or below average, depending on how you want to put it. Not the typical,
Yeah.
which doesn't make it better or worse. It's just not typical.
Yeah.
And that ancient story.
Yeah, but I'm saying, Greg, as I accept that, I brought that argument up. I'm saying the world we live in now,
Yes.
the standard Judeo-Christian worldview
Yes.
chooses to ignore that. And therefore, instead of trying to stretch a definition to embrace, can we envision a world where we have new ways of expressing some of these things? You know, like do we really need to fight for the definition of the Judeo-Christian definition of marriage so that, for example, same-sex couples can be together?
I think there is much value that we as a society have taken an understanding of most things and have enlarged on it.
Yeah.
today we understand horticultural differently than we did 200 years ago. Everything was trees. Well, now we have deciduous trees. We have non-deciduous. We have it broken down in some variations of trees. We got root trees, and we have all this other type of stuff. Yes, the word tree applies to all of them, but it is not a clear definition of any one of these groups. So what I'm coming to is that as technology and our Western thinking has given us better words to describe events and things, we should also perhaps apply the same rationale to our understanding of marriage.
So are you saying that instead of looking for new definitions, we should stretch the one that we have to embrace?
Yes, and a wild idea would be give it a completely different name or subname.
So yeah, give it something different.
Yes.
Here's another question though. How about people who move in together? Are they married? So you have this individual, person A and person B. And let's go with the Judeo-Christian traditional worldview, okay? And they are male and female, okay? The binary worldview. Then they say, we love each other, and they move in together. Are they married?
You're asking me.
Yes, I am. I'm asking you.
So, in your story that you talked about Abraham and Sarah, a couple of generations, or not that many generations later, Isaac, who was born to that family, also becomes of age. And they go out and they do arranged marriage for Isaac.
Yeah.
Now, as I have read this story, it sounds like they found a very nice young lady.
Beautiful one. I think he cried when he saw her. That's how beautiful she was.
I cried when I saw my wife too. So what I'm saying is that in that story, they wandered out into the field, if I recall correctly. There was no minister, priest, guru, ceremony.
Yeah.
There was.
That's all custom.
Yeah. There was no pieces of paper traded.
Yeah.
No inking of that. And they were perceived, as I read it, as being married.
Yeah.
So.
Based on that. When two people move in together,
I would argue that has all the elements of a marriage. Now, do they believe themselves to be married? Does the outside world imagine them to be married? Does society recognize that as a marriage? Those are other questions.
Well, there are questions, Greg, but oh my goodness, I'm going to dig myself into a big pit here.
Good.
You know, I would like to believe that I am a spotted hyena.
Okay.
Believe it as much as I want to, I am a human being. Okay? So, do they believe that they are married? There's a conversation to be had there. But you know, like the owners and operators of the English language say that when it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck,
Probably a duck.
it probably is a duck.
Yep.
So whether they choose to believe it or not, I think they're married. That's a marriage. We can eliminate all the cultural things we attach to marriage, okay? Let's do that. The ring.
Yes.
You do not need to have a ring to be married.
That's right.
Okay, that's just something we created a couple of years back so we can sell more metal. Yeah.
And rocks.
And rocks, Yeah, what are these South Africans wanted to sell diamonds. Yeah.
South Africans.
Yeah, South Africans, they created, say, nothing says I love you like a diamond.
Yeah.
That's advertising. Okay? It's not marriage.
It worked well. Yeah.
The white dress.
Yeah.
Okay? Just because the white dress is not there doesn't mean the marriage is not valid.
Yeah.
Okay? The white dress and the diamond go into the same category as the dowry that was paid by Isaac and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay? It is not what marriage is. It's just the custom we have attached around the idea of marriage, this big idea.
Yeah.
Okay? Because customs have a way of making us, identifying us as belonging to the group. Mm-hmm. Okay? So in the group that I'm staying, in the area I'm staying with, the group decides that to validate marriages, you need to do it in a garden.
Yes.
And so everyone has a garden wedding. And then when next person is planning a wedding, they also want to do it in a garden with flowers and everything. But you can do it in a kitchen. Mm. Okay? You can do it on the hallway. You can do it on the highway. Just stop on the side and get someone there to do it, and that's it.
Do it on the side of the road, though.
Yeah, on the side of the road. So all of these things are things we have customarily attached to the big idea.
And they're not bad. They're wonderful ideas. Yeah.
They can be.
Yeah, they can be.
They can be wonderful ideas.
And they can be quite expensive ideas, too.
They can enrich some people also. I've often told people that, listen, don't spend your money on the event. Spend your money on the life you'll spend together.
Yeah.
You don't want to spend $1 million on the event and then you start your life together with debt. Mm-hmm. Like it just doesn't. But anyway, so when people, I think, move in together, Greg, that's a marriage. That's a marriage.
Yep. And with some reluctance, I say yes, and I say that because traditionally, that's not what we see in the Western culture.
Traditionally.
That's right.
Traditionally. So in the Western culture, you need to go and stand before a pastor or a judge or whoever is licensed to do the legal, the law of the land.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's a question worth asking. Maybe we should ask it this way, Greg. Is a marriage valid if it's not done according to the law of the land?
According to the law of the land, no.
So you're not married according to the law of the land.
Yes.
But can you be not married according to the law of the land and be married according to the definition of what marriage is?
Sure. Yeah. And I think there's, again, some of the examples that we saw here. If Isaac and his Isaac and Rebecca did that today, the law of the land would not recognize that marriage.
Yes.
Yet in the scripture, we're seeing it as a recognized union. A union. I'm using union, marriage interchangeably.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the culture where I grew up, the marriage is recognized when the parents meet.
Oh, so not when you say I do.
Not when you say I do. No. The I do part, that's the Christian tradition. You have to go and stand in front of, and you'll think this is actually fascinating. Where I grew up, things have changed somewhat now, but if you had participated in premarital sex, okay, and somehow we found out, maybe because got pregnant or something, you were not even allowed to cover, the bride wasn't allowed to cover her face with the veil. So don't veil yourself. You need to leave it open. You know.
Okay.
And I'm saying, what in the world is all of this? This is not, and I guess what bothers me is that it is sold as the biblical definition of what marriage is. It is sold as this is what God or the gods require of us to do. And I'm saying, no, it's just custom. It's just what you like. And therefore, whether two people move in together, they might choose not to see it that way. I think they are married.
I think you're onto something. Is that necessarily the best way of doing it?
Is it the best way of doing it? I think each case will be different. I think there is an argument to be made for cases where, say, the families are... It is either hard for the families to come together to recognize this union, okay? Or in a case where maybe the families are not even there, like there is no family around, okay? Then at that point, you can't do that part.
So going back to your story about where you grew up and were raised, when the parents got together and I'm saying had tea together, whatever it is,
Yeah.
they had something. What happens if one set of parents doesn't like the other set of parents? This is not acceptable. I'm not happy with. What happens then? Or is it the fact, well, they met and that's good. Now we got a little check mark off our list, and it doesn't matter if they agreed or not. We're still going forward.
Yeah. So in most cases, it won't even get there. Like you would tell your family that you have seen a girl and you would like to be married to her, and then the family, like people say from my family, will then do their homework and investigate, and in most cases they already know the other family.
Okay.
In most cases, okay. And if they don't, they will find a way to get to know each other. And this event is also one of the events where they fully start to know each other. Because where I grew up, and marriage is not only a union of the two who are getting married, it's a union of them and their families. You are all involved in this thing now.
So if I understand you correctly, that the family surrounds this couple
Yes.
and they take on a role of support to that couple?
They become their support system. Sickness, children, health, everything. Your families become your support system. They are there when you lose a loved one. They are there when you're celebrating birthdays. They are there when you're celebrating each and every event of your immediate, family circle. This is your support system. And in a case where a tragedy happens and the two of you die and you leave your children, this support system then embraces the children. So it's a very, when it works, it's a very good system, but I'm biased, okay? Because I grew up in the system. It's a very good system. But if we go with that system and two families meet, they agree that, okay, yeah, we're now family, and you don't go and stand in front of a pastor and you say, I do, then the law of the land and the Christian worldview, at least in the way it's practiced, says, no, you are not married.
But 200 years ago, when they weren't active in those communities, the marriage still happened without them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So today, I'm just for my own interest, you still have a pastor, priest, a judge, whoever it might be, that officiates an event, even in your community now, or not necessarily?
Oh, in some places you do have that.
Okay.
But there are some people who still don't do that.
Okay.
They don't do the whole stand in front of a judge thing, or stand in front of a, with more westernization, it's becoming more prevalent. Okay. But the point I'm making here is that what works for you should not be the standard of what marriage is. What works for one should not be the standard. I understand there are the laws of the land, okay?
Sure.
And there are places where, for taxes, maybe you would want to follow the law of the land so that you can get a favorable outcome in your taxes. So then you will go and stand in front of a judge and say, yeah, we're together, and get that paper. Mm-hmm. But the big narrative here, the big idea,
yes,
I would argue, is about the two and their immediate surrounding families, and that idea of building, to go back to your illustration you used at the beginning, to create that place where you can optimize for each other.
Yes.
And I think that's it. I think that's it. All of this other stuff is just stuff we've thrown into the narrative.
Oh, I love it that you like my illustration.
Yeah. And when it comes to same-sex couples, there's a bigger conversation that still has to be heard there. Mm-hmm. I still think that definitions are like, they can be like legal ideas, like we spoke about legal codes not too long ago. Like the law of gravity, whether I like it or not,
still there.
It's there. And people tend to be very defensive on their definitions. Mm-hmm. Okay? I mean, look at the world we live in. Not too long ago, Mr. Director, you should be able to find this and throw an example on it on the screen or something. You have someone who would come out and claim that they are, I'm even saying claim, but make an argument that they are black, and oh my goodness, people just come out saying, no way, you do not belong to this group, you cannot claim that.
Define yourself that way, yeah.
People can be very strict or harsh when it comes to their definitions, because we tend to feel like we own the definition. Maybe when it comes to same-sex couples, or couples that just don't fit into the traditional view, maybe it's time to have different vocabulary.
I agree.
Different definitions.
If you have different definitions, I could say that, then that allows for people to feel safe within this particular definition. Mm-hmm. And the next definition applies to that group or that person, etc. on it, and it doesn't infringe on it. But what I'm trying to say is that using your example here, if somebody were to say to a visitor to the planet, we have guys running around in bunny suits in greenhouses. I'm going to use this because oftentimes they dress up, and then we have astronauts that dress up in bunny suits. Is it the same suit? Does it cover the body? Yes.
Yes.
It's dramatically different.
Yeah.
So by calling it something different, it still allows people to understand it and still allows them to move forward, even though it's radically different.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're onto something when you say, look, let's rethink how we define the word marriage.
Yeah. I remember seeing, I heard this. Someone said it's not a lack of love, but a lack of friendship that makes unhappy relationships. And it is true that there are so many relationships out there that are unhappy. There are marriages, Greg, where people have done all the things that we define as essential for marriage. They have stood in front of the judge, the pastor, whatever, and they have put on the ring and wore the white dress and all of that stuff we have attached to it, and still are extremely unhappy.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think when we go back to the basics of this big idea called marriage, there just has to be a friendship for it to work. There has to be some sort of comfort in each other's space for it to work. And therefore, I find it then extremely challenging to make all these other things that we have attached to it. I mean, even the very idea of having a party to celebrate the wedding, you know, I find that all these ideas that we attach to it are not what's important and are not what makes it work. What actually makes it work is, are you friends?
I think that's an important point that you hit, and I like where you're taking us. But I want to go back. I'm still uncomfortable with what you said at the opening here.
Okay.
And that is that you talk about the right of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So using this idea that you have the friendship, do I have a right to friendship?
I would say yes.
I would say that you're setting yourself up not to be a friend when you do that. My point is that you have the privilege to be friends. I consider it a privilege to be your friend. I don't know because of me, but it is a privilege to know you as an individual. And I kind of even like our director. So I have a friendship with people. It's a privilege to do that. Here's my point I'm coming to. Talking about privileges versus
Rights.
privileges. Yeah, rights.
Yeah.
A number of years ago, many years ago, I was able to use the gas pedal really well on a couple of vehicles. And as you mentioned earlier, the policeman stopped me and kept giving me these little pieces of paper.
Yeah.
Got to the point where it says, you know what? You're going to pay a whole bunch of money, or we'll take your license away for a couple, 3 weeks. And I said, oh, you know what? I don't want to give you any more money than I already have. I want to go on holidays anyhow. You can have my license while I'm gone. And I came back, and I still had a few days I was without my license. And they sat me down there and says, you understand, Greg, this is driving privileges, not driving rights. So it's my right to drive. I'm a Canadian citizen. I should be able to. So no, you have driving privileges. And once you violate those privileges, we take your license away from you. And I thought, well, that's an interesting perspective, because I always thought I had the right to drive.
Yeah.
And when I got my license back, I'm happy to say I have not surrendered it to the authorities since. But what I'm coming to is that the minute you realize that it is a marriage privilege, then it changes, for me, it changes how I look on it. I have a privilege to be your friend. I need to make sure that I don't violate that. But if I have a right, it's your right to be my friend, you're supposed to be here for me, and I can call you up any time of the night or whatever it is. Hey,
So
I have a right to be. You better help me. It's your right and my right.
yeah. I think that's where our problem is, Greg, right there.
Yeah.
Because you are defining right as something that is something that you have the authority to demand. But I'm not defining right in that way. I'm saying this is essential or this is good for humanity and for the progress of humanity.
That I agree 100%.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not saying it needs to be. I feel like you're using a legal something that has been used in the courts of law to say, okay, you have the right to remain silent. I mean, you have the right to do this. This is my right. You cannot kick me out of this place. It is my right to occupy this space. No, I'm talking of rights, and maybe maybe privilege. I'll give it to you. Maybe privilege is a better word. But I was thinking of rights as something that is actually, like if we say you have the right to life, it is rights are those things that recognize humanity and are beneficial for all of us.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I don't want to get caught up in the semantics, but I'm just saying is that it changes for me when I see it as a privilege, my driving privileges versus my driving rights. My privilege to be married versus my right to be married.
Yeah.
And I think if we have a right to, in my thinking, again, this is my thinking, I become very, very demanding, and I have edges to this right.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think that's the case.
And then you start to want to protect that space.
Exactly. Yeah.
And usually when that happens, people get hurt.
Yeah. So for me, it's a privilege. It's a marriage privilege, not a marriage right. And that helps me. I'm not saying it doesn't help you, but it helps me.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. Yeah. So, Greg, again, here we are. This individual has just landed from the moon, and they are saying, hey, I was looking at your history as human beings, and at some point you adopted this big idea called marriage. How has that worked for you? How do you respond to that?
On a personal level?
No, like for humanity. Like, where has it... do you celebrate this idea? Was this a good, big idea? Or this idea has been pretty messy for humanity? This idea...
Yeah, it's been messy for humanity. As if you look at the statistics that are very popular around, most marriages about 50 to 55 or around 50 to 55% will survive, and between 45 and 50% will actually fail in divorce, thereabouts, and depending on the time frame that they look at. So you have a quite, in my opinion, a very high failure rate with this big idea. And then you take the other 50, let's suppose it's for easy numbers, 50-50. You take the other 50% that stays together, there is a moderately high percentage, and I don't know what that percentage is unhappy married couples. So the aggregate sample is that this thing is not a very successful idea. Does it have the potential of being fantastic? Yes. So I would argue that from a big idea perspective, it hasn't been that productive, that successful. It has a moderate success rate, I think, with an overall with the propagation, the family side of it, bringing humans in, giving them a fairly safe, clean place to get established on. I think marriages / homes have been quite successful over the years. We've seen, again, with medicines, etc., where The mortality rate of the mums have gone way down. The mortality rate of the babies have they've gone down. So we have successes, but I'm not so sure we can point to it as the marriage idea. It's more of a medical idea. From that.
Do you have an idea before I share what I think about this big idea? Do you have an idea on what the successful marriages have had in common? Like, what makes them successful?
I'll go back to my greenhouse business.
Yeah.
I think if there is a successful marriage, it has to the grower, one of the lead people in that group has to understand who they have as a spouse. That's number one. You need to know who it is that you're hopefully growing. And I think the second thing is that you have to have this idea of friendship and a fun component to it, ideally.
Yeah, I hear you, my friend. See, if someone were to ask me about this big idea, to say, okay, just give your summary of this big idea called marriage, I think I would say something along the lines of, this has been a beautiful, big idea that has been terribly practiced. The idea remains great, and where it has been put to practice with diligence and care, it has done more good for those who are involved in it. But where it has not, it has brought great harm.
Yep.
Therefore, this is one of those big ideas that if I were given the privilege to do this, I would take a huge sign and stick it in the front of that idea that says, caution, handle with care.
Yep.
Handle with care. Because there is enough evidence to say, if you don't, this wonderful idea
Sure.
will be your demise.
I can appreciate it because in my model, I have gone into some greenhouses that are hellholes. There is too hot, no humidity, or maybe there's too much humidity. The bugs are going way faster than outside. It is being a breeding ground for disease, being a breeding ground for disaster. It's much better if that plant was outside of that greenhouse.
It's a very powerful statement. It's much better if that plant was outside.
That's right.
It will have a better chance of survival.
Sure. And you're not destroying the plant.
Yeah.
But there is this possibility. If you can get it right, it's fantastic.
Oh my. Oh my. Mr. Director, which camera can I look at this point? I want to make an appeal at the end of our conversation, Greg, to everyone who's watching at this point and just say, please, it helps this channel to carry on bringing beautiful conversations. At least I think so.
Yeah.
And even greater work. We have so many projects that we're working on that we want to bring to you.
Yeah.
And all we're asking for you is to smash that subscribe button.
Because we got more ideas.
Because we got more ideas. And I think you brought something up in your last statement that I think we should talk about next. Divorce.
Yeah.
That's a big idea. which came about to solve problems from one big idea that we just spoke about, marriage.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Make sure you join us also in that conversation.